Welcome to a special episode of the Get Off My Lawn Records podcast.
Get off my lawn!
I'm Donald W. Moore. I started Get Off My Lawn Records after being a professional audio engineer, and it just didn't make a lot of sense for everybody, so I decided to start this label and do things a little differently. And I wanted to share everybody's record contract and why I consider it to be what I call sustainable music. You've heard me talk about sustainable music on previous episodes of this podcast. I'll put a card in the upper right of this video. You can just click that and go look at the regular episodes of our podcast. We get everybody together. We talk about all sorts of things. But this is really specific to starting a record label and why bands work with Get Off My Lawn Records. I want everybody in the audience to know how much everybody makes, so that when you buy a copy of the record, you can feel good about knowing that everything's being split in a very equitable way. So what is sustainable music? Well, sustainable music is music that is made both artistically and financially in a sustainable way. It means we're not paying too much to make the record. It means we're leaving as much artistic freedom to the band as possible. And it also means that we're going to do things where no one person is getting really, really wealthy and everybody else is still starving if the album is successful. So how do we do this? Well, the first is we create a collective audience. I want every fan of every band on Get Off My Lawn Records to know about all of the other projects going on with Get Off My Lawn Records. We're going to do that in a couple of ways, and I'll show you in the contract exactly how that works. The second is we have an equal distribution of profits. Now, the common way we see equal distribution of profits with indie labels is a 50-50 split where the band gets half and the label gets half after the costs have been recuperated. Now, in showing this to you, you'll see that that's basically how it works when there's 4 people in the band, but if there's more people, it's still sustainable. I don't want to make duo records because that's the only way anybody can figure out how to make any money anymore. The other thing that we do is we allow as much artistic freedom as possible. There's limitations on time and resources for things like hard drive space and tape, but I don't want to step in and tell artists what songs to play. I want to make sure that they're making their statement in as clean of a way as possible and just try to capture it so that the audience can enjoy it. But when we do that, we have to embrace our logistical limitations. In talking with all of the people that I talk to a lot of musicians every day because I'm always looking for people to join the family, is that there's a lot of people who think that because we can do all of these things digitally with overdubs and with heavy editing, that that's how we should do it. But I've found over the years that a really good performance in a room captured really well and optimized so that everybody can really hear what's going on is way more interesting music. It's better for the audience, enjoys it more, and artists come away feeling like they really captured lightning in a bottle. And that's why we have to embrace our logistical limitations. Then we also have to do a lot of community outreach. It's part of building a collective audience, but then also we have to make sure that we're giving back to the community in a way that makes sense. And then finally, for our audience, it is all about transparency. This is why I'm making the contract that everybody's going to sign public. I'm going to put it up on getoffmylawnrecords.com. And this whole presentation is about the language in that contract and what that means. So I mentioned bringing more artists into the family. It is a family. We're all going to work together to make really good music. How does our record contract even start? It's between Donald W. Moore, who's me, operating as Get Off My Lawn Records, that's me, and everybody else who's signed for the purpose of recording and releasing a sound recording. So we're going to make a project. Now, the sound recording is part of it, but there's also the video aspect, and there's all these multimedia things we have to do as artists now. But everybody else is known as the band. So individual members of the band, who are all signed on this one document, it's very simple, will be known as family members. So being a family, we all want to see each other succeed. We want to help each other up, build each other up. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're all going to carry 2 copies of every other Get Off My Lawn Records release to every gig. Basically, the merch table will become a little Get Off My Lawn Records store. And what'll be great about that is most people that buy from that store will be buying your record because they heard you play and they're interested in buying a copy for their own enjoyment later. But then also, if somebody likes punk rock, there's a punk rock album available or a electronic record, and this way they can try new music and they can get a hold of it and learn about it, and then everybody helps because when the electronic music finds the guy who likes your music, everybody gets a new fan. So the copies will be provided by me, and the band will let me know what the inventory is doing at least monthly. This way I can give new copies. So if something's selling very quickly, we can keep that, or maybe even give a few more so we don't have to meet up as often. Now, the other part to creating a collective audience is we have to promote each other. So everybody's going to promote their own project at least 5 times during the week of the release and at least 5 times over the next year. That's your own project. But then we're all going to band together and we're going to promote everybody else's project the same way. So when another band has their album come out for that week, we're all going to make 5 posts about that project and why our audience should check that project out. And then 5 times over the next year. Now, it's easier if I just am an admin for your social media, but we don't have to do it that way. But that also works. Now, the other part of building a collective audience is that I have an audience for my Freeform Fridays and this podcast. So everybody's going to come on and be on at least one or the other. But everybody's welcome to join on as much as they want. It's a great big open invitation. Now, the time commitments, everybody's got limited time, so I need 3 hours from each member of the band, each family member, to do these. So we'll make best efforts to make sure scheduling is as flexible as possible, and we'll put everything together in the project parameters document. Now, the project parameters document, it's the result of 2 meetings after we sign this contract. So within 2 weeks, we're going to talk twice. The first will be so that I can develop the project parameters document, and the second is we can all review it and make sure everything's correct. So the scope will be determined by me, and I'll outline it in the document, and I'll share it with everybody before we begin production, and for the audience, I will make this public after it's released. Now, what's in the project parameters document? We're going to document how much recording is required. So is that 1 4-hour day? Is that 15 4-hour days? How many songs are we going to record? How many takes are we going to plan for each recording? Because that's going to affect how many tapes I have to buy. The format of the recording, whether we're going to even do it to tape. We're going to figure out where we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it. We're going to figure out who's going to be playing on each song, and we'll figure out the exact song list, which will include working titles. That'll include stuff that we record but don't release. Now we'll figure out who's playing what, and then because we'll know how many tapes I need to buy, those are recoupable at $2 a piece. So I'll figure out how much tape we have to recoup after the project's for sale. Now, how the money works. This is the big question for every band. It's annoying, and I don't like it. I try to keep it simple. We're going to split everything. So each family member, once they sign the contract, they get $1. That's to satisfy the contractual concept of considerations. And all revenue from the recording is going to be split evenly between Don and each family member after my direct costs have been recouped. This is calculated on a per-track basis. So if a family member only plays on half of the album, they split that half of the album with everybody, but not the half they didn't play on. I'm going to add up to 3 people to this split. They'll count as having played on every track, but that's for things like photographer, publicist, and probably a sales team. I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet, but I'm thinking we'll consider each band that sells copies of other bands. That will be that they'll get a share of that as well. So we'll define this all in the project parameters document after that first meeting, and then we'll just make sure everything's cool at the second. and we'll make sure everybody agrees to whoever we're adding to this split before we even begin production. Now, the actual manufacturing does cost money. The way it works is to make regular CDs, it's about $2. If you do them mass-produced, they can be a little cheaper, but we're going to do them on demand. This way we're not spending a fortune and having mountains of unsold CDs. So we'll print them on demand. It's going to cost about $2 a piece. We'll do that here in-house. Now, limited edition releases and anything with like multiple discs, those are going to have to be recouped at $10 because it gets very complex to do the packaging. We're going to hand make the packaging. We're going to make sure if whoever's doing the hand making of the packaging is compensated at least $15 an hour for doing that. And really, limited edition releases will also include cassettes and vinyl. So they're going to also be $10. Now, if I do a larger run of cassettes, it'll be cheaper and we'll recoup that at cost. Download cards are going to be recouped at 50 cents per card. They don't quite cost me that much, but the difference is where that's what we're going to give away for promotional copies. So we need to have a little extra in the budget for that. Now, digital sales, things like iTunes and Amazon, we have to recoup the first $20. We have to pay for a UPC code for this thing. So after we get that first $20, we'll split whatever is left after those big tech snakes steal, 30% off the top from us. Now, recording costs, if there are costs, they're recouped at $2 a tape, like I said. There's no recouping cost for digital. I just don't like working in that way, but I do it. Sometimes it makes sense. Now, I'm going to be the one who makes the decision on whether we do this to tape or digital. It's going to be entirely based on our conversation for the Project Parameters document. Sometimes it might not work. On a previous episode called How We Make Music, I'll put a card. You can actually see us having that discussion and what that kind of sounds like and looks like. Now, I'm going to recoup $100 in the ad revenue from YouTube before we split anything extra. The videos take a mountain of time. I shoot them, as you see with the Freeform Fridays. It's just a lot of work, so I need $100. I'm not even being paid $15 an hour at that $100. And then I'm going to spend up to $600 a year marketing and advertising the project. So we'll recoup that from total revenue. But that'll be depending on how we're doing this, and we'll try some things. And I want everybody's input on that before I start spending money. So really, though, let's look at this visually. How much do I make? So if you're talking about a compact disc that we sell at $10, we've got that $2 recoupable cost, and then everybody else gets $1 from that sale. So the guitarist gets $1, the bassist gets $1, the drummer gets $1, I get $1, the photographer gets $1, everybody. Now, when you think of the band collectively, the band gets $4. And then if you think of me and the photographer and the promoter and the publicist collectively, that's $4. That's where that indie label 50-50 split comes from. But the numbers change depending on how many people play on the record. I like a fuller sound, so there's an incentive to have more players rather than overdub our way into it. That's your $10 regular plastic CD. Now, if we're talking about those limited edition releases, the Get Off My Lawn Artisan Sound Series, those are going to be $25. And if my costs are higher, we'll amend everything and sell it for more. But I'm aiming for $25. So when somebody buys the $25 copy, which will be hand-numbered and very handmade, each person will get $1.88 rather than $1. And the band will collectively get $7.50 off of those sales. Now, download cards are the most equitable because they cost 50 cents. So if you look, when we sell a download card for $5, because that's all we're going to sell download cards, we want a low-cost option for people who just want to check the music out. They're not die-hard fans. They're not buying physical copies yet. They just want to hear it. The download cards, they cost $5. So everybody gets 56 cents on that. So your percentage on that goes way up. And the band collectively gets $2.25. It's just about right. It's just about that 50-50 split if it's 4 people in the band. Now, there's other parts. Songwriting royalties, we're just going to include it in the split. especially when you have a whole band, I think the arrangement that the band comes together with, that should be included in the songwriting. So everybody splits it, but whoever has the copyright on the song, that will be theirs. But any of those statutory rates that get paid out, we need to be exempt from that. Now, if I book you a paying gig, I'm going to get 20%. That's just what bookers cost. Now, if I can find somebody else to do it for 20%, I will. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but when we put things together, there might be money, and we'll split it that way. Now, each family member, I'm going to pay them quarterly, and I'm going to make sure everybody knows about the sales every month. Though I'm going to do stuff on Google Drive, so it should be faster. And then I'm going to check the band's inventory annually to make sure you're not, giving copies of the CDs to your friends. That's what the promo download cards are for. Now, this is contract work. Each family member is responsible for their own taxes. I just don't have the resources to do your accounting for you. Now, who owns what? I mentioned that the songwriter is going to own the song. That's yours. You wrote the song. But I'm going to own the master recording. I'm going to own the recording of the song. So for licensing, you'll get to negotiate the songwriting part of it, and I'll negotiate the song, the recording of it. But we'll still split whatever I negotiate for the recording. Now, I do need 5 years of exclusivity. You can't re-record the songs for 5 years. The band can make their own merchandise like t-shirts or beer koozies. I might do the same. If I do, then that will be split after my costs have been recouped. So now we have a commitment to each other because we are a family. So our commitment to each other is that all songs used in the project are not permitted to contain hate speech, as defined by me. But the project will not be allowed to be used for purposes of hate speech, as defined by the band. So I'm going to make sure that we're not making stuff that I'm not cool with putting out. But you're going to get to make sure that I'm not doing something with your music that you're not comfortable with. Now, we also have a commitment to the audience. Now, the commitment to the audience is that I have to reserve the right of at least 10% of the unreleased material. We'll split all the money, but I need 10% of the material that doesn't make the album so that I can show it to the audience and let the audience enjoy it. Now, the band will get to decide what this unreleased material is and is allowed to be used, but I need at least 10% of it. And then finally, I have to be able to curate. So I have final say as to whether or not the project will actually be released. Family members are not allowed to show the project to anyone while we're working on it, or even before it's released. Because if you show people works in progress, it might actually turn them off of the project. So let's not do that. So that's the contract. The whole text will be up at getoffmylawnrecords.com. And I want everybody to understand that this is the deal and it's not negotiable. But I'm just trying to do this as sustainable as possible. And I want the audience to know just where their money's going when they make a purchase of a Get Off My Lawn Records product. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. Let me know how I did. I don't do a lot of these presentations. You guys see the podcast. I just usually hang out in this room and talk, but this time I was playing with Keynote and I thought this would be really interesting. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.